Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. I have a little different backdrop today. This is The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons, but backdrop is from Grafton, Illinois. It's on the Mississippi River. You can see a rainbow and you can see a huge flag that's in the background. And there's also a watchtower that's in that area where the mic is at. Let me lift that. But it's a beautiful place, and we went to dinner there. And it's something that reminds me, we got the flag, we got the rainbow, and we need peace and we need strength right now to make it through. uh Rea and I were talking, that's my guest, and I'll introduce her. We were talking about what's going on in the world, and I was talking about what's going on in the UK, Ireland, Germany, and France, and even somewhat in Australia and Canada. We can say that too. There's so much turmoil, and it has to do with governments doing things that people don't like. I don't want to get into politics. This is for entertainment purposes only, and mostly my opinion. But I see this on the internet, and news does not cover any of this. You don't find the mainstream media covering any of this. It's crazy. The world has gone crazy. The riots, and it has to do, like I said, with governments allowing too many people coming into the country. They can only hold so much. We can only hold so much. For people, for immigrants, we like immigrants here in the U.S., and I'm sure in Canada they do too, and in Europe they open their floodgates for the immigrants. But what happens is, when you go to a country, you go there and you try to assimilate in that country. You don't try to take it over. You don't go in there and tell them, well, you're going to give up all your culture. We're going to run the country now. We're going to have this law and we're going to do this law. That's not the way you do things. When you're an immigrant, when you migrate to a country, you go along with their traditions. You can keep your own traditions. I know a lot of people who speak their own languages in America. I mean, Spanish, Filipino, Chinese, they all speak their own languages. That's fine, but they don't come here to take over the country. I'll tell you, there's a lot of country you don't walk into and try to take over and tell them you're going to do what you want to do. I know some countries, I won't name them off, but they're like we call them. There's some third world countries that are actually smarter than we are. They know how to control their immigration. You can't own any land, you can't buy any property being an immigrant or a non-citizen, and they have a wise idea there, and a little bit. Let's say I'm not a racist at all. I'm married to a Filipino woman. I'm not a racist. I played music with black people and also served in the military with black people and Spanish people. So I'm not at all. So what I'm saying now is we have to be careful with this immigration. That's what's causing all the problems in Europe and everywhere else. It's causing problems here in this country. We're having to foot the bill and the taxation, and it's crazy. The whole world is like almost on fire now. We got a war that might be happening in Israel and Iran and all those countries there. War is already going on. Russia, Ukraine. That should have never happened. The destruction. Yes, it gets on my nerves, and I talk about the exterior stressors that kind of push in on us, let alone our own families and our own problems we have. We have all this pressure on the outside. It's like a big air ball. It's just pushing in on you. You feel it sometimes. You have to kind of get away from it. Well, I have a guest today, Rea Tarnava. She studies energy, body energy, and we'll get into talking about this. And I'm going to read something off here. In a time, well, I want to first advise you that this is the strange reality. I don't have it up there. I just have this little pretty scenery. But in a time when the majority have people have accepted that the body is a sum total of mechanical parts and not much more, it is imperative to explore the truth of our divine creation and design. It is time for all of us, humankind, to spread our wings far beyond the confines of any box that limits us in any way and start exploring the truth of who we truly are. And one aspect of who we are is that we are infinite energy beings with electromagnetic field that extends far past the borders of our seemingly physical limits. This is immeasurable and provable. This is no longer a theory. When addressing the whole person, when restoring health and coherence, this invisible part of us can't be ignored. And not only that, It holds vast information that informs us of where we are stuck, where we are blocked, and why we are experiencing much of the symptoms in our bodies. And that goes for millions of people around the country. Rea Tarnava, she's also, let me read her bio here. That wasn't her bio, that was her foreword. And I just wanted to read that because it sounded so good. I wanted everybody to hear that. Uh, Rea Tarnava, she began exploring alternative medicine about 26 years ago. And I've had her on the show, I guess, about 4 years ago, maybe something like that. Yeah. And you were on K Core. I think that was about maybe 4 years ago. And so I know her and I know what she's been doing. She's been busy the past year, so she hasn't been doing too many shows, working on her PhD. She's about ready to finish all that up. And she's spent about 26 years doing that, seeing the problems within the current Western medicine paradigm. She completed the Bachelor's of Science and then went on to learn from pioneers in the field, including Carolyn Miss, Wayne Dyer, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and Dr. Joe Dispenza, to name only a few. Rea is currently working towards a PhD in integral health, life physics, with a focus on subtle energies and water. I need some water. I got allergies that's been kicking me right in the tail end. Yeah, but it's better today. But I get dry in the throat, that catchy part of the throat. As a gifted intuitive empath, Rea offers many different modalities in her clinic, which blend technology and esoteric. She uses both the consciousness-based approach to health and healing by addressing the whole person mixed with science-based assessments, utilizing investigative tools, including the bio well, in which she'll be explaining that, I guess, here before long. Ah, wow, dry throat. It's allergies, people. It's nothing else. From her more than 2 decades of research, Rea developed the infinite energy method, a powerful intuitive modality based on concepts from quantum physics and delivered through the use of specialized tuning forks to create vibration and sound frequencies important and sound beneficial in transforming the subtle energies of the body, mind, emotion, spirit, and biofield. This complex multidisciplinary method was founded in practices such as traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, energy medicine, I know a bit of that word, applied kinesiology, and somatic release, Kwai Kong, and health coaching. And her infinite energy classes are designed to develop a practitioner's individual intuitive abilities through facilitating changing in clients and wellness on all levels. That's a little bit about Rea. I've never been like this before. Dry. It's not dry there in Canada, is it? Rea Tarnava. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and your just what I read off about most of your bio there?
Absolutely. So I guess a lot of what we'll probably be talking about is what I find in clinic when I work with people, and how what I do differs from other energy medicine, I guess, based modalities. There's definitely an intuitive component when you're working with people, and especially when you're training other clinicians. I do teach classes in the infinite energy method, and a big part of it is playing into your own intuitive abilities, and developing those abilities. So yeah, so I guess fire away. What did you want to know the most about, like what the method entails?
Well, what I've been talking about is something I know, the ET mechanical side of it, and the UFOs, and I know Bigfoot and ghosts and things of that nature, and spiritual things. Angels, I understand somewhat, but here's the thing: we don't understand what's in us. That's the last, journey we take is within ourselves, and you're getting to that point. You're doing this work, and I've always been interested in manifestation and also meditation. It's hard for me to meditate. And you said you help people find their intuitive side. I'm an intuitive person, but I can't use it upon call. I can't call it and say, "Hey, I got to use it now." It only comes and goes when it wants to. It's just like ETs or anything else. I have no control of it. But some people with meditation qualities and what you're teaching can help them do that. I wanted to ask you how you got started in doing all this energy work and finding out what the truth about us on the inside is. And as you said something about due to your ailing family members.
Yeah, so there's a couple major kind of contributing experiences that I've had that have kind of led me on this path. When I was born, my father was already having signs of heart disease. And by the time I was 7 years old, he was already having open heart surgery. So I was a very, young child, and having a sick parent, you become when you're already sick. So, I mean, we're just going to take that kind of right off the table. I'm a sensitive, very sensitive person, probably what would be called a highly sensitive person. If anybody's ever read the book HSPs, that would be how you would categorize me. I'm already very empathic and sensitive to other people. So with my dad not being well, I think I became sort of hypersensitive to health. So I would always be feeling his energy when he was at work, or when I wasn't in the same room with him. I was able to feel his energy to make sure that he was okay. So that became sort of the first really big, I think, event that kind of led me down the path of wanting to do this. And sort of the second thing is, again, I was born with the ability to see energy. When I was a kid, I would have a lot of encounters with, I mean, what do you want to call them? Ghosts, spirit beings, whatever you want to call them, non-physical entities. And so I also, in my 7th year, I had an uncle that passed, and we went to the funeral, and it was in a smaller city in Alberta called Lethbridge, where most of my family lived. And I remember going into the funeral and seeing my uncle standing beside the casket and asking my parents. At this point, I'm super confused, right? Like a 7-year-old, you're what, in grade 2 or 3? And asking my parents, well, I thought he was supposed to be dead. Like, why is he standing beside the casket? And I remember my father's reaction being very sort of irritated with me and frustrated, that why would I say something like that? But I could see him standing there as clear as day. So like growing up like that, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear about these entities that you see when you're trying to sleep, and they're bugging you in your room, and bugging you for me, it was mostly at night, or when it started to get dusky. I would start to see things moving about the house. And so thankfully I had an aunt who was like this, my one aunt. And so I was able to talk to her and not feel like I was, a freak of nature. Yeah. Or anything. It's not like you can tell this to everybody. Like I say, I figured out by the time, grade 3 was over, that there really is not a lot of people who can talk to this stuff about, because they don't understand and it scares them. Yeah. So the two events that started leading me down the path, just having all these heightened awareness abilities, and what that meant. And so as time went on, how it turned for me kind of in my teenage years was I would start to have dreams about people that were going to die. So like, not necessarily family members. I think for me, it's the people that resonate with me. So I remember, like, I knew when Princess was going to die, and I knew when John was going to die, but yet there are, countless celebrities that I had no idea. I think it's just had sort of this deep affection or affinity for these people. So
yeah, I think you said John Lennon. You cut out when you said that with the sound. I think it's the internet connection we talked about earlier. But yeah, we're getting the gist of it. But I just wanted to clarify that. Now, these entities that you saw, Rea, did you really see them physically, or were they just shadow people, or did they come in your mind and your consciousness, Rea?
Well, that's an interesting question, because nowadays I see them in my mind's eye. So I think that's probably from the fear from childhood. Like I believe that I probably stopped actually seeing them, because when I was a kid, it would scare me so much.
Right.
So how they looked to me, even as a child, was there was like this luminescence, or they weren't like a normal person. They were partly transparent, and they had like an internal source of light. So they looked different. They had a very different quality. And quite often they didn't have feet. They would be kind of pant legs, but no feet coming out of the bottom. So I can't explain why, but I have read other literature where people claim the same thing, that they'll see them sort of without feet. And
Really? Hmm.
so, like I say, then I had, as a young child, I also had a near-death experience, and I think that really opened up abilities,
Mhm.
my to
That
into.
it seems like everybody has their experiences like me. I had my experience when I was 13, but a lot of boys my age, 13, 14, 15, they were drinking or they were thinking about or dreaming about drinking their first malt liquor, beer. But yeah, that's just beyond that. But to be serious again, I read the second one, how your curious mind led you to delve into how and why therapeutic touch works, and your first foray into energy medicine. Now, when I visit my mom, I pray for her a lot. She's 96, and I pray for her. She has back problems and pain, and I pray for her. But when I visit her, like I did today, I grab her hand and I say, "Let me spread some energy and love to you, Mom, by touching you." I have a strange feeling that praying from a distance, they say there's quantum connection or entanglement, but praying from a distance is not as good as what you just said here is laying of the hands on somebody. Could you explain that, Ria?
Well, I mean, I think all of it is relevant. I've seen it with my own eyes. I have clients that I treat over Skype, or video conferencing, and I've never met them in the flesh, and they get better. But I think when it's somebody that um, it resonates a little bit more with the biology. So, being that it's a parent, if that were a stranger, it wouldn't necessarily, I think, have the same effect. But as a person who's elderly and you're her child, there's already a bond and connection. And so when you hold their hand, it does. It's a transference of electromagnetic energy to that person. And it's through emotion, it's through concern, it's through empathy.
Yeah.
So
It's like DNA quantum entanglement, right?
in a way, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed that with my mother too when she was passing. I was with her every day until she passed. And there's something, like I say, magical about holding or touching somebody, especially when you're related to them.
Right.
It's not that the laying of the hands is, any less powerful when it's a stranger, but I do find that the person who's not well, there's something about that connection with family that's just a little bit more, what do you want to call it? A little bit stronger connection than with,
Yeah.
say, a
You know,
person.
sometimes I feel a sense of hopelessness. I've had several family members, close family members who passed away. And in their hospital bed, I prayed for them. I prayed and prayed day and night, day and night. And they still passed. And I think somebody, not somebody, but a lot of people are saying that it's when it's your time to go, you're going to go. And I'm not so sure. Do you sense that also in your energy work, Ria, that when somebody's time to go, they know when they're going to go?
Absolutely. I mean, none of us are getting out of this alive, right? The goal is to live your life and be in the best possible health that you can be in so that you can enjoy your incarnation and your experience. But we all have a time when it is time to go. And it's not with family members who ask that we remain in the body when we're not well, right? I
Mm.
went my mom, like I wanted her to stay, but I got to the place where I could see that this was her time to transition.
Right.
And so as a culture, we need to change the way that we think about death. We need to demystify it and take the fear out of it, because it's dying is as natural as being born. You come into this world to experience a certain number of years, to have an incarnation, and then it's time to go on to the next incarnation, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah.
So that infinite part of you is always learning, and every lifetime it learns something, but it needs to continue to move on.
Right.
So it to the next then incarnation of learning.
let's go into what you've been researching and what your PhD is going to go with. And you also you showed me a book earlier, and I kind of compared it to the term I always use is spiritual currency to get you past different walls or different dimensions. You say here, and you talked about this method, and this is the probably I might be missing, but this is your main focus. What is infinite energy method, Ria?
So that's a modality that I have developed over the years. And it's also courses that I teach. So practitioners that are wanting to learn this, or even people wanting to learn this to use with family and friends. And it's currently a 6-level program. So there's 3 levels to be certified, and then there's 3 advanced levels for people who want to go deeper in the work. And again, it's a culmination of a lifetime of learning. So what I do know, my research, is that there isn't any one thing that is the answer. And so if you even in terms of religion, why do different religious backgrounds fight? Why do people from different religions fight? And this is my opinion, take it for what it's worth, but again, this is something I feel very deeply. Is whoever is really the planet and controlling things from a higher level, because it isn't the government controlling things. Whatever is controlling humanity is much higher than government. It's much higher than even the elite families. They're all just part of the part of the form, right? But
Yeah.
look at like Christians, and it's like, well, here Christians, you get this part of the truth, and here Muslims, you get this part, and Jews, you get this, Buddhists, you get this part, and Hindus, you get this part. And so everybody has a little piece of the truth. Everybody, that's strongly committed to their religions. This is why they fight with other religions, because it's this truth versus this truth. So there's a whole little bits and pieces of truth with a bunch of maybe not so truthful things in there. And so it's divided amongst us so that we fight. Politics is the same thing. It divides people. Sexual orientation, same thing. It's designed to divide people. It's like they're baiting us, trying to figure out more and more ways of dividing humans so that we don't get together and unite against the forces that are creating the dissension on our planet. Yeah. It's much bigger than what we. And so.
And you're talking about the world situation right now, like I alluded to at the early part of the show. All these factions and all these countries, different religions, they want the ability to have it their way, and they don't want your way involved. And we can't do that. We got to share this planet. We got to share religions. Everybody has the freedom to express themselves in religion, but not to take over another religion. And that causes war. And that's also a political thing that gets involved. Ria, you mentioned something about the elites and then the elite families and everything. They're not totally in charge. Who do you think is really the top dog in controlling this planet and us people? Is it the creator, the source?
No, I don't think so. I think it's on a lower level than that. I think how we look at source is a source of love, of giving life. It's the source of all goodness. What I think is controlling this planet, we probably, none of us have probably seen or are aware of it. Is it a group of people? I don't know. Is it a single person? I don't know. But what I do know is it's not human, because the way that human is very loving. I have clients from all religions and all backgrounds. And I was raised in a home where there were certainly opinions about certain groups. And what I can tell you is that we're all the same. We all have the same hopes, same fears, the same dreams. We all love and I'm not talking about psychopaths. I mean the majority of people.
Right. And you also expressed this in energy devices available today. Are there energy devices being utilized against us, Ria, to turn us all crazy?
Mind, I just want to finish my train of thought here before we go on.
Okay, yeah, you were kind of cutting out. That's why I've kind of jumped in. Yeah.
And my reason for bringing up the idea with religion is because they do the same thing with medicine. So medicine is the same. It's you're either going alternative medicine or you're going Western medicine, and they divide. Where medicine and health and healing is powerful is when it all comes together, when it's not divided and you're not having to pick and choose. Because if you need an operation, clearly the best Western medical doctors are going to be the ones you want to go to. You don't want to go to a Reiki practitioner if you need surgery.
Right.
But if you've got chronic health issues, then I feel like an energy worker is where you want to be, because chronic things cannot be helped with pills. You cannot pill and inject yourself into better health. That's just a fallacy. That's just a business.
Mm-hmm.
So like I say, the point of bringing up the religions was to make the analogy that healing and health is treated the same way.
Yeah.
That it's
Okay. Yeah. Kind of cracking up there a little bit, like we had the sound a little problem earlier, but we'll try to get through that and bear with it. But I mentioned something about the energy devices that, and you mentioned it in one of your notes, the energy device available today, the med bed. Do you know anything about the med bed with the frequency thing, Ria?
I know what I've read, what's out there in the literature to read, and it's just not there yet. The science and technology of the devices that are being sold, the majority of them, they make very minor adjustments to your health, and I don't think people should rely on technology.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking what you're teaching, it's a human touch. It's also, in using intuitive and energy healing. And you also go into, there are 3 levels required for certification in the infinite energy method. We just talked about the energy method, tuning the chakras, vibroacoustic bodywork, and biofield timeline repatterning. Can you tell us what those are all about, Rhea? What those things are?
So like I say, it's a complex system that has evolved over time. And the idea of the practice is for the practitioner, obviously, to develop their skills, but also to be able to assess the client and determine, what their needs are, and then follow the protocols to make the changes to the energy. So it's more following the Russian model of health, where we're looking at the 4 pillars of health. So we look at the mind, the body, the emotions, and the spirit as the 4, main components of a healthy person. And so when you look at Western medicine, that they really only consider the body, you're only treating of the problem. So this is why I feel like it's becoming obvious to everybody on this planet what an epic fail it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, the body is really only responsible for the problem maybe 25% of the time.
And
so
energies can heal people, though. Certain things you see this, the energy, you listen to it, it's supposed to clean your pineal gland and your chakras and increase your chakras. Now when you do studies on chakras, you mentioned that in there, tuning the chakras, can you tell in a person which one of their chakras is out of balance just by checking them out or tuning their chakras, Ria?
yes, yeah, we do. We teach people how to dowse, so we use a pendulum and we dowse, and we're checking to see whether that energy center is over energized or whether it's blocked. And so depending on what we find in the assessment portion, then we're treating that.
Mm-hmm.
I start with level 1 with the chakras because it is more of a basic concept. The chakras are basically governing the major themes in your life. So if you have a client come to you and they have problems in their life that are basically leading to a theme, let's say the theme of the root chakra, where it's safety, security, and do I belong in the world? If they have a lot of issues around those themes, then you clear their root chakra. So this modality uses specialized tuning forks. So we're using sound and vibration. We're working on the body with vibration with the tuning forks, and we're also working in the field with sound. So we do both. And the frequencies are, because you're playing them audibly, it's like an instrument. It's not a digital. I think a lot of this digital stuff, I call it dirty electricity, because it's again, how are you delivering? Are you delivering it through TENS pads? Are you delivering it through speakers? How the body changes vibrating the water. So we want to get with the tuning forks and actually make contact with the body, so that vibrating the water, that's where everything is held. That's where all the information is held, in the water of our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that about water. And you said here in your notes how our field carries information. Is that our aura, that the energy is on the outside of our body? Somebody said the energy is not on the inside, it's on the outside of the body. How true is that, Rea? Am I hearing the wrong thing?
Yeah, I think you are. We carry energies different ways. So in your human, an electromagnetic field that is generated by your heart. So your field is roughly 6 feet, but depending on the person, sometimes people can send their field out 50, 75, 100 feet. If they're an empath, they send their field out a lot further. And then the chakras also bring in energy, and then meridians distribute the energy to the acupuncture points. Like there's this, and then there's the subtle bodies that are held within the biofield that also are transmuting and transitioning subtle energy to the body. So like, it's again, when you look at the Vedic way of, the Vedic from Hindu mythology, that's where we get the chakras from. The meridians, medicine, the subtle, these are more of like, I kind of give a lot of credit to Barbara Brennan with her research on the subtle bodies. So there's all these ways of looking at energy, but it's when you put them all together that I feel like it becomes really powerful. And so when I teach practitioners to assess and treat, we look at all the different ways that subtle energy is utilized in and around the body, and we test and correct all of that. So it's, like you say, it's quite a complex methodology.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about one of your patients here, in which I find fascinating in your notes. I'm kind of jumping around, and because you got so much that you've done, so much work, so much schooling, so much investigation that you've done, that it'd be hard to get it into an hour and a half program. So you have an experience with your custom forks and a client who was having a mental breakdown. Could you explain that case to us, Rea, on how that works? Yeah.
Yeah. So that particular set of tuning forks, I call them the infinite energy vortex tuners, and those were actually frequencies we got in meditation. And it took me just over a year of meditating to get those frequencies. And I had to actually and figure out what they even meant, because, you just get the numbers, you don't really get what they're used for. And so after studying them, I realized that when you add up each of the individual frequencies, they will total either 3, 6, or 9. So it goes back to Tesla talking about the power of 3, 6, and 9 in regards to the universe, the power of the universe. So Linstead, he calls them quantum healing codes, 3, 6, and 9. So then when I studied a little bit further, I realized that they fall within the brainwave frequencies that are generated in the brain, like the 5 major brainwave frequencies that most scientists will research when they're looking at the brain. So I had them made up as weighted forks. Predominantly, we use them around the ears for entrainment, but we also use them on the body. So 2 forks at a time to create an entrainment. So I guess to get back to the story about the client, he was in the hospital, and his wife did not want to leave him there, because in Canada, when it's a psychiatric issue, they will take them for 30 days, and we really don't have any to what they're doing to your loved one. So they would have medicated him and restricted him, and God only knows what they would have given him. So she had heard about me from another client, and she brought him to my clinic, and it was in the evening. And he was, I mean, the phrase, he was like wigging out. He was like literally coming out of his skin.
Mhm.
And I had never seen anybody in such a bad state ever. And I mean, I've worked on over 1,000 clients in my life, and I've never seen anybody in that badly. And so this was when the method that I had come up with for the brainwave tuners was very sort of fresh. I had just finished writing all the protocols and had taught a class on the weekend in how to use these. And so I did the full like brain tuning protocol on him, where we reset the vagus nerve using acupuncture. So we reset the dorsal vagal on the back and the sympathetic, and then the ventral vagal on the front, going down the front of the body. And so it's a series of about 30 acupuncture points, as well as we work along the spine, clearing all the neural lymphatic points along the spine. And so after I finished clearing that, he had stopped writhing, and like, I mean, it was bad. He was like twisting and like coming out of his skin. It was horrific. So that just resetting the vagus nerve. And then, like I say, I take like I don't have my forks here with me, unfortunately, but like you use two around the ears like this. And that creates that binaural. And so I went through all the brainwave frequencies for several minutes each frequency to re-entrain waves. And by the time I was finished that, he was falling asleep. So he went from like complete panic to falling asleep within an hour, which was like to me a miracle.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned acupuncture. Now, do you utilize that also in your practice, Ria?
No, I don't do any needling. I do it all with sound. So I use the acupuncture points, but I use tuning forks, or we'll hold points. So you might hold a point with your finger so that you can feel it. But no, we don't do any needling.
You ever hear of the acupunctures in the ear for back pain?
Yes, yeah, auricular therapy.
Yeah, I had that done, and I'm not sure if it works or not. So they got these long needles they stick in there. Then they call it a battlefield acupuncture, in which they push little pins, or like little thumbtacks in your ears, and you leave them in there for 3 days, and they're made of gold. Some of them are, and they practice those too. And I've had like the pins in the ears for the back pain. They asked me how my back pain's doing. I said, well, I think it's better, but you don't really know if that's what's helping you or not. How do you know, like, if the acupuncture or your frequency treatments are actually working? How do you find out from the patient, that it's working, or the feedback you might get?
So it's a lot of like testing points on the body. So in applied kinesiology, there are points on the body for testing meridians, for testing different things. And so it's those points that you're using to get feedback. And also, I mean, your client's symptoms are also feedback.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you came to me with back pain, I would be checking your large intestine meridian. I would be checking your bladder meridian, and probably like gallbladder meridian, and seeing where they're at. Anytime that you've got pain in an area of your body, over energy of that. So, after I did some assessing, what I would do is probably be sedating those long meridians. So I'd be energy out of those long meridians to take that away. And then reassign homework. So when I train people how to do this, like trained practitioners, a big part of what we do is we're assigning energy exercises. So it's the people that get better are the ones who do the exercises every day. This is not like a passive modality where it's like, I'm going to fix you.
Yeah,
That's
that's what
not
I'm gonna ask. Yeah.
this whole idea of people putting their hands on you and healing you is nonsense. And I would say to everybody out there, like, please put that out of your mind. You are your creator, and you are the one who needs to fix you. we're just the Sherpas. We just do all the testing and guide you along the way. But the people that I see get better, I see people get better from bad stuff, Parkinson's, lupus, cancer, you name it. I've seen people get better. And the key is the people who do their exercises every day and take it seriously, because you learn to feel your own energy in your own body. Yeah. And I do know is there can be 10 people with cancer, 10 people with breast cancer, and all 10 of them have breast cancer for a different reason. There is no one fix. Your energy dysfunction is personal. Mm-hmm. And so we check 65 things. Like I say, if you had a control group of 10 people with all the same type of diagnosis in cancer, all 10 of them are going to have a different energy dysfunction. It's not going to be the same for all of them. And this is why the medication doesn't work, because everybody has acquired it for a different reason. One person might be going through a divorce. The other person might be living in a terrible marriage. Another person might have a job that's driving them crazy. The other one might have lost a child. There's all these reasons why people will develop a cancer in a specific area. Mm-hmm. And so when you assess their energy and you come up with these 65, like I say, tests that we look at, then you can determine what homework to give them in a priority sequence so that you're seeing improvements to the dysfunctional pattern. Right. And I say I've seen it with people who stick with it from beginning to end. By the time they're done, they're in balance and their health is returned.
In medicine now, they're using frequencies to cure people. And getting back to the med meds, that's what it does. You get in there, and then they have a control panel there with certain parts of the body, and they pinpoint certain parts of the body, and they send frequencies to that certain part of the body. Well, that frequency thing has been going on for 20-something years, because that's how they bust up kidney stones and gallbladder stones with some kind of a frequency, an energy that they vibrate these stones and they break them up. That's the first I've heard of the frequency. Now, do they have frequencies, or are they holding it back from us? Or do you have frequencies that could actually cure cancer that you alluded to a while ago, Rea?
No, there's no specific, like I say, there's no specific path to a cure. It's a very individual thing, and it's a matter of determining what is creating the dysfunction in the individual. You'll never find two people that have the same energetic dysfunction. It's just like your fingerprints. It's a culmination. So the way Western medicine looks at something is they want to find the root cause to blame. They want to blame it on something. Mm-hmm. And health and healing it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's a balance. So if you look at it through the eyes of Chinese medicine, it's a matter of balancing those 5 elements. It's not one element that's going to cause the problem. It's the relationship of the 5. And those 5 elements then govern the 12 meridians. So I like using Chinese medicine to assess people, because it gives you a broader view of how their personality plays into it. Right. Which element are they strongest in? Which are they weakest in? And then when you're assessing the meridian, how is the flow of energy happening through the 5 elements? Like I say, it's a very complex way of looking, and in doing so, then you're able to determine where this person is deficient. So, like, is it stomach and meridian energy that they're deficient in, or is it large intestine, or is it a combination of 10 different ones? The one client that I had with lupus, all of her meridians were out. Every single one of them, all 12 of them had dysfunction. And it was a real process of having her do different exercises. And then she would come back after 2 or 3 weeks, and we would change the exercises based on the result. And then she would come back, and again, you're changing the exercises. So every time a person comes back, you're reassessing and you're tweaking things so that the exercises that they're doing are remediating dysfunctions. And this is why I think acupuncture is really hit and miss, because there is no other than to listen to your complaints and maybe look at your tongue. There's a few little things, but it's not getting down to the nitty gritty of actually looking at the energy in the meridian and working on them one by one. In acupuncture, based on what symptoms you're telling them, they'll choose acupuncture points and they needle them all at the time. Well, that again is very difficult for anybody who's got nervous system imbalance. If you've got sympathetic fight and flight problems or freeze, where you're, in that polyvagal and you're into that parasympathetic and you're in that freeze state where you can't get off the couch, any sort of needling cumulatively like that, where you're needling multiple meridians, you're causing more issues with the nervous system imbalance. So you're actually working against healing, because people cannot heal until their nervous system is balanced. It's just not possible.
Yeah,
your nervous system has to be in the scope of balance. Otherwise, that energy is just flowing everywhere. It's like a dam that is broken and it's flooding everywhere and you can't contain it.
right. Well, we kind of mentioned, I think, big pharma earlier, probably pre-show, and with big pharma, they actually try to tell people not to utilize supplements like vitamin D, magnesium, and things of that nature. And then they say, well, your body says you don't need magnesium because your blood test, you're fine. You're fine on magnesium. But are those blood tests correct? I've been hearing there's been some falsification of our knowledge through history. History has been a lie to us. And these levels that they show is just, it's just like when they tell you, okay, you're diabetic, here's your levels here. Now, actually, diabetes does have a quick way of letting you know there's something wrong, but big pharma tries to keep you away from these supplements, Chinese medicine, and also from frequencies. They're saying, no, that's all hogwash. You need to see us, and we need to give you medicine that costs a lot of money and makes these big pharma a lot of money. So that's what my thoughts are. Rea, do you get that impression too, that they try to snafu a lot of the work that you're doing?
Absolutely, they do, because if you can heal yourself for free, then their business model fails, right?
Right.
So with Western medicine, with big pharma, they don't want you to be cured, because then they lose a client. So every time somebody is cured using their drugs, they lose a customer.
Right. Well, since I'm a combat veteran, I'm pretty well up on the PTSD. And you mentioned this in your notes that you'd use talk therapy after your own diagnosis of PTSD. Uh, that was your personal experience, I guess. You were talking about that. And then underneath, you have 432 hertz versus 440 hertz. Could you tap in both of those kind of questions or statements you made, Rea?
Yeah. So like for PTSD, for most therapy will make it substantially worse, because the body, every time you talk about trauma, your body relives it. So the last thing that you want to be doing is continue to rehash. So that's the first thing I'll say about PTSD, is I've noticed incredible changes in my clients with doing repatterning sequences, where we will change the effect of the emotion rather than trying to talk through it.
Right.
So that's the first thing I'll say, is I'm not a fan of talk therapy for things other than, marriage counseling, great, go talk about it. You have a trouble with somebody, great, go talk about it. But trauma, to me, that's just a bad combination, is talking about it. Every client that I've ever treated that has been harmed by the entire psychology, where it's like, we got to keep talking and keep people talking, it keeps them sick. So where this really stems from is during World War II, there was a lot of research going on frequencies that harm. And so our natural musical scale is tuned to 32 hertz. And the body, of course, everything about the body is also geometry. Math is the language of the universe, and specifically geometry. Mm-hmm. And this is where we get these sacred geometry and everything. If you take the word sacred out of it, it's still geometry. It's still mathematically based. So the body, our body, plants, everything that you look at, there's a pattern and a rhythm. And so what they did, the Nazis were experimenting with frequency to harm people. And there's actually that you can find. You go to the US.gov website and you can look up. I've probably found 30 different patterns of sound frequencies that harm people. So what they did was they changed the standard for tuning from 432 to 440.
Okay. All right.
Math and the geometry doesn't match up anymore. And that's when there started to be a real surge in mental health issues, because people listen to music on the radio, and it's all deep 140 hertz. So it has if you're a sensitive person with a sensitive antenna, that small 8-hertz frequency change over the course of all of the music notes, it drives people crazy. It drives them to have mental imbalance. And it's actually a frequency weapon.
Really? Yeah, like how about Metallica? How about that kind of a rock and roll? Does that really vibrates the body in a negative way, doesn't it, Rea?
Well, like I say, I mean, I don't think it's so much the genre of music. It's the fact that it's been tuned to the frequency so that we can't use any of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, don't think for 1 minute that the TV shows and everything that's working are filled with frequencies that are harmful. I don't watch TV anymore. I don't listen to the radio anymore. I have my music playlist, music that I buy, and then upload off the internet. It's really cheap, like $10, and it's called 432 play. You will convert all of your music you listen to into 432, so that you don't listen to it in that tainted form.
What station was that, or what channel? I mean, what network or did you just said? You just
It's an app. So it's an app that you download onto your phone, and it's called 432 player. And it will convert all of your music list over to 432 hertz so that you're not listening to it at 440. So I highly recommend for anybody that's having any sort of depression, mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar, any of those, you stop listening to music being played at 440 immediately.
Is that a paid app? You have to pay for it?
Yeah, it is. I think it's $10 or $8. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not bad. Now I want to get into, I saw that you mentioned here that you help to get the heart synchronized with the mind and emotions, and you called the heart a while ago the center of energy. So is it the deep breathing thing they say, and there's a song that just says just breathe? Is this how you get your heart synchronized with your mind and your emotions, Rea?
Well, coherent breathing is one way to do it. So again, HeartMath has a very good program for learning coherent breathing, but we do it in clinic. So it's another protocol that we do with binaural forks to sync the heart with the mind.
Okay. Yeah. And right under that, you have the 4 pillars of health. Could you tell us what those are? I think those the basic health issues, emotions, physical, whatever, Rea? Could you explain that?
4 areas that in this modality that we focus on. So we focus on the mind and the emotions separately. So the mind is one pillar, the emotions are one pillar, the body, and then the spirit. And so when you're looking at whole person healing, you need to address all the areas where they have an issue. So with some people it could be faulty thinking. With other people, they could just have emotions that are running amok. With some people, it really is a body issue. Maybe they have an endocrine or a metabolic issue. And then there's this spiritual aspect of it, their disconnect with source. Are they actually, what are their beliefs outside of themselves? Because all of that needs to be balanced. In order to be a balanced, we can't just focus on the body. This is clear about people that get cancer and they go through chemo and surgery, and then a few years later, they're back again because they haven't looked at the other issues. It could be something with the mind. It could be something with the emotions. It could be something with the spirit. It's maybe not in the body.
And now, can a person meditate and control their heart and their emotions and their mind through meditation? I know I have a hard time meditating. I tell people all the time, I can't relax enough to meditate. And do you meditate in your practice and what you're doing, Rea?
Absolutely. Yeah. Meditation is a big part of it. It's a very important part of it because when you connect up to source, that's when you get those intuitive senses. That's really the way that you build your intuition, is quieting your monkey mind so that the internal side of you can resonate with the truth. Because you're never going to find truth here, right? That's even my truth. It's maybe true for me, but it's maybe true for somebody else. And so the only way that the world will ever find the truth is to go inside, and that to me is through meditation.
How do you do the meditation thing? I'm just always curious. I ask people that because I have a hard time with it. I really do. And I can go into a lucid dream if my visitors come in to my mind and I go on a little trip with them, astral projection. But meditation is something I cannot call up. I can't do on demand. How do you do it? And what's the best way to set yourself up for meditation?
So for me, because I've been doing this kid, I can go into meditation very deeply in a very short time. But what I do like to do on occasion is using the tuning forks for theta or for delta, which are low frequency. They're maybe 2 or 3 cycles per second. And so again, using those two tuning forks over the ears, it slows down your brain waves so that you get out of that monkey mind. And so if I really want to get into meditation, I will use like the delta tuning forks around my, and it slows me down immediately, and I get into very, very deep meditation within about 30 seconds.
What frequencies are those tuning forks?
Well, I can't tell you the exact frequencies because they're proprietary. Like I say, they're frequencies that I put in meditation. So I don't give out the frequencies, but it's the frequency that I call delta, and that one is very, very good for meditation if you want to really be out and quiet that monkey mind.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm reading here, going back to the top of the list. Why Royal Rife's original work was different than much of today's technology, answered as an empath. What is Royal Rife's, Rea, and are you an empath? I guess you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about what that means?
So, like, what it means to be an empath is just that you're very sensitive and you can feel other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really a good empath. You can feel things in someone else's body. So you can go into their energy and feel where they're experiencing pain or where they're experiencing issues in their body. So it's just that you become that sensitive or empathic, right? That you're able to pick that up. And so, like, from the point of view of there were a couple of things that made Royal Rife, in my opinion, his frequencies. And that was firstly, it was the microscope, that universal microscope that he did. And so he was able to see at a very extremely small microscopic level what those frequencies were doing. So without that microscope, it's very difficult to know what you're working with. So he would use a carrier wave. And so he would keep tuning it until he got the frequency of the antigen that he was trying to explode. Just like you talked about the kidney stones, how you can blow apart kidney stones with sonic vibration. It's the same sort of thing. If you've got some antigen in your blood, a microscopic invader, and you want to resonant frequency so that you can explode it, you need to have a really, really microscope. So this is part of the big problem in replicating his work. And the other part of it was that he lived in a time where all of the electronic components were like tubes and transistors. They were what I call warm electricity. So it wasn't no digital, nothing digital. It was all created organically, you know. Whereas today, they make these little tiny machines this big that can do thousands and thousands of frequencies, but they're digital. You lose something. The warmth of the quality is just not there.
Mhm.
So I feel like the machines that are out now are very hit and miss because they're digital. And so a lot of these they will make they'll make frequency bands where it's sweeping, you know, maybe 50,000 frequencies over the course of a minute. It's bombardment. It's too much for the body. So if you have somebody who's already very, you're bombarding them frequencies at one time, where that's not at all what Wright did. He was trying to find that one resonant frequency to explode the bug that he was going after. So it's a whole different game. And I feel like I say, I've experienced modern day Rife machines, and I've never bought one because I didn't like how it made me feel. It threw my nervous system off, and I feel like they're pumping too many frequencies into you at one time.
Do you think we're being bombarded by too many frequencies now, like microwaves and all this? Is that causing a lot of confusion? Most people I talk to, and they're really unhappy. They're confused. I guess, of course, you got inflation, you got wars and all this other things, but people, my 96-year-old mother told me that today. She says, all this bothers me. She said it really gets to me. She's very, I mean, she's her acuity is really good for 96, and she can talk to you about the news and all this other stuff. And she says a lot of this gets to me. And I said, Mom, that's because like I told you earlier, the pressure ball is around us. But a lot of people tell me they're unhappy. And what a lot of people are saying now, we don't want to mention what happened the last 4 years. I mean, that's a no-no. But what did happen was that a lot of the children are affected, and you mentioned something about your work related to children, how children can use tuning forks for self-soothing. Now we got other ideas of people teaching kids way different than what the parents really want. So can frequencies actually help a child focus and motivate themselves in a classroom, Ria?
Absolutely. Yep. I've treated quite a few children that came out of the last 4 years with a lot of anxiety and trauma, and the tuning forks have made a huge difference for those kids.
Now, do they permit you to come to the classroom and do that or experiment with that, or is that they? Because I know that right now we got the powers to be, and this is just for entertainment purposes. Powers to be have their own agenda on how they're teaching kids, and a lot of people don't care for it. They don't like it. It's why don't we go back to the old way? Like when I was a child, I had a cardboard box that I really loved playing in. I didn't have a computer or anything like that. And I ran around barefooted on the ground. And they say that's good for you because it discharges negative energy into the ground. So that's a great thing too. But how do we approach our kids? I had another guest on the show, and Heidi Pop. She taught kids, and she did a lot of frequency things with them too. And look what you're doing. But how can we get our kids redirected now in schools? Do you have any ideas or plans with your training that you've had, Ria?
So my best advice to young parents is get rid of your television, throw it out as fast as you can. Get your kids interested in painting, in art, in dancing, in music, in sports, whatever their passion is. Get them away from video games and televisions and get them into nature and the real world and have them engaging in a real way rather than an artificial way. And the further that you can get away from anything artificial, the more healthy, happy, and well adjusted your kid will be.
Right. And keep them at a certain time limit on computers, I guess, because they use computers now in school to train kids or teach kids. So you can't eliminate that totally. They're going to get that in school anyway. Uh, Going down your notes, I've been, kind of jumping around, but there's so many things that you have done and with this energy and your training that you've been going through. I've known you now for 4 years, and you've been going to school, finishing about ready to finish your PhD. You still got some classes to do there, but yeah, we're getting some interference on the line. Can you hear some of that? I you know,
It kind of sounds like a voice talking
yeah,
over.
yeah, it is. It's voice. Weird. Oh no, don't start that again, guys. Okay. Uh, uh, I guess your scientific approach to your methodology using equipment to measure results. Can you tell us what some of that equipment is that you use? Can everyday people get a hold of that equipment or use it, Ria?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can go take classes in how to use it, just like I did if you're interested. So one piece of equipment that I use for doing assessments is called BioWell, and it's a GDV, gas discharge visualization, or EPI, electronic photographic imaging, very similar to Kirlian photography. So it's a little box, and you put each of your fingertips in one at a time, and it will take composite images of the biophotonic discharge from around the fingers.
Mhm.
So measuring that electron discharge. And so I read the biograms, but as well, the system will provide you with about 9 pages of data. So you learn how to go through and understand the data so that you can really kind of get a picture of where this person's health is at. So the BioWell is designed to measure stress in the system. So where is your body sending energy and why?
Right.
And so, like I say, I find it very, very helpful, especially if I get people that have a lot of symptoms or they've already been diagnosed with some sort of illness or disease.
Right.
I find it very good practice to do a BioWell before and after a session, so I can see energetically what improvements we've made during the session, or maybe what we did, maybe it would cause more problems. So, like, it's a way of monitoring to see how the body utilizes what we're doing and where the body is putting that energy when it has extra energy. So it becomes a very useful tool,
Yeah.
and actually they use these in doctors' offices.
Right. Well, since this is your study and you developed this, the infinite energy method, I'm going to read this off, developed by Rea Tarnava, is a powerful intuitive modality based on concepts from quantum physics and delivered through the use of tuning forks to create vibration and sound beneficial in transforming the subtle energy of the body, subtle bodies, mind, motion, spirit, and biofield. And I just wanted to, tell people that's what that is what your program is, and you use that, and you called the bio well, and do you utilize that in your infinite energy method too, the bio well, and all of the other concepts together, Ria?
Yeah, I do. Like, not all practitioners will have or invest in a BioWell, but like I say, I really like it because it's a good way of measuring before and after a session, so that you've got a real quantitative look at what's going on in the person, and you can look at it from another alternative rather than just your own sense or what you're coming up with for dowsing with your testing.
Mhm.
So confirming what's going on in the person. And like I say, then you're able to really see in black and white what changes have been made and how it affected the person.
Mhm.
So distributing that energy, or how it differed with your treatment. So basically what I'm saying is, with all of the different protocols that we have in the infinite energy method, it helps you to narrow down which protocols are beneficial for that particular person.
Right. I'm going to take a break here and tell people they're listening to The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. I don't have it up on the screen. I just thought about doing something else that shows peace and power. And my guest is Rea Tarvana. And I want to get into the nitty gritty now. I'm into some different notes, and we're going to go back kind of like in the beginning of things for you. You Was it you that had a near-death experience that changed everything?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could you tell us about that, Ria?
Yeah. So yeah, I was a kid and I was very, very sick. I had a bowel infection and so in that moment I probably died and was floating up above my body. And I was really, really, I was like sleeping with my dad. He was sleeping beside me, I guess, because my parents were worried about me. So I floated up, and it's funny because from that child mind, I remember looking, and I'm looking down at my dad and I'm looking down at this other person. And I remember thinking to myself, like, who is that laying down in the bed beside my dad? You don't, it takes a while for it really to kind of hit you.
Hmm.
Um, thing that I remember really clearly is in their bedroom, they had this beautiful carved plaster ceiling. So it was very fancy. And I remember as a kid, always looking up at the ceiling and wishing I could touch it. And so, like, when you float out of your body, then, I was able to kind of look up and get and see that design in the ceiling very, very clearly. So those were sort of, like I say, two things I kind of remember. And
What
I
what age was that? Was that before you had this visualizations of shadows and people and entities?
oh, I was very, very young when this happened. I was just a very, very small kid. And so when I came back from that experience, it really changed me as a person. That's really, I think, where it all started with now I had like this incredible memory, like an eidetic memory that's attached to emotions. So anything in my life where there has been a feeling or an emotion, I can recall it like it happened 5 seconds ago.
Mhm.
Uh, how it looks, what people were wearing, what they were eating, what everything, all the details are there. It's really bizarre. And that happened after that experience.
Yeah. I
Like
think
I feel
I,
weird.
I think people are interested in why you're doing what you're doing, number one, and also what you're doing. And we've already talked about what you're doing and some of the concepts you created. And now I'm taking you back in time and letting people know how you really got connected. And I think it's a consciousness that you have that you developed through this. And you also said your family tree, they had intuitive abilities and that passed on to you. And it's just like the ET visitations, they say that follows DNA lines. Does intuitive abilities follow family traits? And do you think that this all happened to you? And you saw these things when you're 11 years old and you had a near death earlier? Do you think that this followed your DNA and they passed on this intuitive ability to you, Ria?
I do. I believe that. And I've heard many other, from other people who strange intuitive abilities as well that it passed through. It usually seems like it's the maternal DNA line for the mother's side of the family. But I will say that for me, like I had family members with interesting abilities on both sides, on my dad's side and on my mom's side. But probably the one that was, like I say, the most prolific or profound was my grandmother, my mom's mom, and just the abilities that she had. And I mean, we never knew the word psychic. That never entered my mouth until I was, probably in my teens. It was just how things were. This is just how my family operated. It wasn't anything unusual to be able to do these amazing things. It's just the way it was.
Right.
So
And you've had quite a few out of body experiences, I guess, through that. Now, these out of body experiences, were they astral projections to other planets or any of this ET, or was this mostly spiritual and consciousness, Ria?
like I kind of put it down to consciousness, and for me, like I wouldn't say that any of it was anything extraterrestrial or anything like that. But I do put it to like a great consciousness. I feel like, I've always put it down to math. Like people ask me, well, why can some people do this and others can't? And I just think it's, maybe part of that connection to the infinite amount of energy that's out there in the universe, where maybe my brain just has a little bit more of an antenna and can pick up more of it.
That's what I think. So you're an empath and you use your consciousness, and you have to have consciousness to know what's going on around you and what's going on out in the universe, and who controls things. You made a statement here, and I want to read this for people. You said everything we do in life, as a job or otherwise, is all part of the tapestry woven to bring us to our purpose. My experiences and how each contributed to the present moment. You say that we have a purpose, and we're born with a purpose, and we work through that purpose. And could you tell us, Ria, what happens when you do reach that purpose? And are you reaching your purpose, what you're supposed to be doing? And what happens when a person fails their purpose? I know that's a lot to unpack, but Ria, give it a shot. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, I can comment on that. So, some people are lucky enough that they figure it out very early in life. And I wasn't one of those. Like, I really figured it out probably in my 30s. So I was already an architect and I was employed doing that. But, I wouldn't change anything, because I feel like what I learned, being an architect, where you really learn three-dimensional visualization, and you're able to design buildings before you put it out on paper. That's really learning how to wheel the astral, right? So I became a good manifest, and so I've had no issue manifesting anything in the world that I can dream up. I can make it happen. And I really feel that I owe that to architecture and art, because that's really what developed that internal sense that I can create it on the inside, then I can create it in the astral, and then I can create it in the physical. So I feel like everything that people do in their lives, whether it's cleaning toilets at a restaurant or being the CEO of a corporation, some skill or some level of your consciousness that needs that experience.
Right.
So I always tell people, never think of any of your experience as a waste of time, because all of it is it's all taking fun.
That's what I think too. And I think that people need a purpose in life, and they need to have something to look forward to, especially nowadays, going through all this stuff that we're going through. And I know when I was a younger person, my purpose wasn't with the military, so I didn't stay. I didn't take the commission. So I went out and I played music, and I went to school, night school. But I played music for many years, and that I served a purpose of entertaining people. I thought that was part of my purpose. Well, that's over. Now I'm retired, and I thought I gotta have another purpose. There's ETs. I've had these experiences. I know all about this stuff. I want to enlighten people. So I didn't start writing books until 2.5 years ago. So, and now the podcast, I want to enlighten people into what's going on, not just with ETs and UFOs. I told you that earlier. I want to get into the mechanics of us, inside of us, what makes us tick. And you have that training, and you've had that research, and you've had to practice with life's energies, and you know a lot about this. And that's why I find that you're interesting, and all the people that talk about spirituality, communications, consciousness, and this awareness that we have inside of us, and all of us have that. We just don't utilize it. It's just like me not being able to meditate because I'm too darn nervous. So I don't know, but that's giving people hope. I appreciate that, Ria, and that's why I wanted to read that off, because people have to have a sense of purpose, and that's important. And I guess you treat a lot of your clients, and is that one of the things that's brought up, Ria?
It is, like, quite often, I'd say probably 20% of the time, I will get a client and they're struggling with finding their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a part to which I can help counsel them to finding that purpose, but it is a very individual thing. I can find some of it in their body using the tuning forks that can sometimes hear in between. So before birth, I can hear what a person is coming to achieve, so I can help them by at least giving that information to them, which is, I've had people that it's made all the difference in the world, because now all of a sudden they've got a sense of why they're here.
Right.
but I mean, ultimately, where we're all headed is in the same thing. It's the same thing. So we go the long way, right? There's all these experiences, and we all have different experiences. Where it's designed to lead you is to the exact same place, and that is completion. You know, when you are complete is when you can be judgmental about everything, where you can be non-reactionary about everything. So no matter what you have coming at you, you're neutral. You're
Right.
Switzerland. You know, you're not allowing yourself to be divided. That's when you really step into your ultimate purpose, when you reach that level of neutrality.
Right. And I guess you do go through a lot of counseling. I mean, you're a practitioner, but I don't know, you get into that, but I'm sure that when you do this energy healing and also this frequency healing, you get into psychological conversations with people, and I'm sure they're going to unload on you of what their problems are, and you have to know this to diagnose, where their weaknesses at are in their body. And I think that's part of, and that's why I thought the purpose in bringing this up for people that are going through a lot of troubles nowadays and stress. Could you tell us, out of all the training you've done and what you're going through more, and I've known you and you're a workaholic when it comes to this energy thing and frequency thing. I really admire what you're doing, your work, and you're trying, you're going to push and get that PhD soon. And I really, and kudos to you. I appreciate all that. But could you tell us now? I know this is a big, wide-ranging question. We've been talking about, alluding to it off and on. Could you tell people now when they could use this frequency treatment, and when they can use counseling, and what they should do to start, like people that are under a lot of stress? That's a lot of people right now. I mean, your office should be full. Yes. So,
Always good.
yeah.
Always good.
So could you give us some advice about how we handle that, and what steps can we take to get these treatments and get treated and get back to being whole again, Ria?
Well, I mean, one way of, I guess, making changes is there's a lot of people writing books. There's a lot of information in books. So like I will out clients a book or two or three, to read. And so for everybody, it's very different. Everybody's at a different level on their journey. So it's really, for me, assessing them, it's meeting them where they're at in their journey. What are their beliefs? Where are they currently at? What's causing them stress? What's causing them anxiety? And it's really taking the time to get to know that person as an individual soul, and what their yearning is. What do they really want out of this lifetime? What are they hoping to achieve while they're here? Like, everybody has a different mission and vision for their life. So I have to ask quite a few questions before I can kind of get to the place of how they can fix it. And like I say, for everybody, it's different. So it's hard to give like sort of a blanket answer, because there's just too many combinations, where like I say, I need to get to know the person at least on some level before I can really recommend. But the one thing, like I say, becoming less judgmental about the world, becoming less dualistic. When you hear something, don't jump on one side or another. Practice neutrality, where you go into the energy of one answer, one side, one polarity, and how does that feel? And then think of it from the other side, and how does it feel from the other side?
Mhm.
Try to put yourself in a neutral position where you're not being affected by what you're seeing or hearing. That's the biggest problem that humans have, is they're like a dog with a bone. You give them a topic, and they've got to chew it to death on one side or the other. We see this with politics. It's A or B, and really A and B are the same. They're the same. It's right wing, left wing, same bird. You're never going to vote your way out of this problem, unfortunately. Like, the problem is at a higher level than that.
Yeah.
So
the lies I can't stand. I see these politicians, both sides.
That,
We're talking both sides, and
oh yeah.
they try to get one up on each other. But the lies, the bold-faced lies, and I think 45 or 50% of the people believe these lies. I'm sitting back and it's, oh no, 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 no. I can't go for that. That's a lie. And so you have to, I guess that's the consciousness in me coming out. I'm being aware of what's going on. And I've been studying this and looking at all this world problem and politics and things of that nature, but it's getting out of hand. We need to come down to the ground and say, hey, we need to make sense of all this craziness before we destroy this world. And I pray all the time, every night, that we don't destroy this world with some nuclear war or something. And Ria, I know that do you have people that come in and talk about having the fear of war and things happen to them, Ria, your clients?
Yeah, I do. I mean, not a lot, but occasionally somebody will be stuck in that fear-based mindset where they're giving a lot of their energy away to the wrong dog. And so like again, that's sort of the way that I look at it is with your thinking and your feelings, what dog are you feeding? You want to feed the fear dog or you want to feed the hope dog? It's up to you. Whatever you ruminate on is what you're going to manifest in your reality. So
Yeah,
if you live your life fear-based, then you're gonna keep attracting situations that are going to keep you afraid. That's just how it works.
yeah,
So a person can grow their consciousness because all consciousness is awareness. And every day you should be challenging yourself to grow your conscious awareness higher and higher every day. Because I want to be more aware of what I think, feel, and say and do than I was yesterday. So like this is the goal I think that humanity should set. And like I mentioned before, a big part of it is neutral. So when you hear something that upsets you, you have to stop and ask yourself, what about this topic is upsetting me and why? Because it's an individual reaction. It's your individuated. So nobody can answer it for you. You need to get to the bottom of why it bothers you. And only you remain neutral about that topic. And so we can all get to the point where we're neutral on all these hot topics. Then what control do they have over us anymore? None.
Can I ask you a question about, we talked about meditation. I want to talk about, you can't talk about consciousness and meditation without, mentioning manifestation, in which you mentioned a while ago. Uh, I have, now, just the other day, Saturday, I thought of this friend and I thought, well, maybe I'll give him a call. Well, I ran into him in a restaurant that same very day that I thought about him. And then secondly, my sister, I needed to see her and talk to her. I ran into her that same day. And so do we manifest daily things? Do we see, is our consciousness, does it see in the future? I mean, can it see that you're going to meet these people or see these people, Ria?
Talking about this guy's book before we started this
Yeah.
club. He's since passed away, unfortunately, but he has proven precognition exists. Like there's no doubt in my mind, like after reading, his work, he has proven scientifically that precognition is actually a thing.
Yeah.
So
I
we have
yeah. I know I manifest seeing people and meeting people, and that day I see them and meet them. That's weird. I just, I wanted to call my cousin, and lo and behold, an hour later he calls me, and I said, I was just thinking about you. Now some people are thinking, well, he's just saying that, just to say that he was thinking about you, but he was going to call you, but he wasn't really going to call you. But no, I was really going to call, these people that I'm thinking about. But that's manifesting. That's about as close as I can get to having an actual practice of it. In closing now, can you imagine we're an hour and a half into this? I want you to tell people how they can get a hold of you, and I'll have it in the narrative also, and how they can get a hold of you and how they can reach you, and maybe you have YouTubes or some classes or things that you can offer people. Rea Tarnava, go ahead and tell people about you.
Okay, so I have a website they can find me at, and that is infinitebiofieldmedicine.com. And that has information about all the sessions I offer. And it also has information about the infinite energy classes that we teach. They can also email me at infiniteenergy@shaw.ca. So that's another way they can get a hold of me.
Okay. I will put that in the narrative when I publish the video here today. And I want to thank you, Rea Tarnava, for being here today from all the way from Canada, of course. And Rea, you've some of the topics and things that you like 4 years ago. I knew that you were onto something, and you're really working at it. And I'm getting these voices, so they're talking to me. I don't know who they're talking to, you or me. So it's strange, weird, but Rea Tarnava was my guest today on the Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. I want to thank everybody for listening in, and please get a hold of Rea whenever you can and ask her, what she can do for you. And I'm sure she's got some kind of a plan that she can work with you on. Thank you so much, Rea, and thank you everybody for listening.